Good morning and welcome to Willow's Green Permaculture. Today I'd like to show you how you can plant a tree from a simple stem cutting just like this, from a stick basically. Just push it into the ground. Like that, now you got a new tree. Talk to you about how you can do it, when it's the best time to do it for the tree you're cutting from and also for the tree you're planting. I'm also going to talk to you about how you can use stem cuttings prevent erosion in creek beds and creek banks, for example, and also in other areas where you might have the soil erosion pressures. I'm also going to show you the results from the stem cuttings that we planted a year ago during the video we did on the same subject. So if this is something that you're interested in, then let's get started. So it's December 12th today, as you can see, winter. However, in the areas I'm going to be working on, we've got erosion pressures. Erosion pressures caused by water along the creek bank and also elsewhere on the property. And because these are very humid areas, the ground isn't frozen solid yet. And even in areas where we may not have erosion pressure, we may also be, the ground may also not be frozen solid. You see, because so long as your ground isn't frozen solid, you can propagate trees in this way. And winter, late fall or early winter or even midwinter is the best time to propagate stem cuttings from trees, because your trees are dormant. And so the wound from your cut that you're going to make from your branch cuttings is going to heal a lot more quickly, because there won't be any bugs and so on that are going to bother it, and the tree is sleeping. Now, even though the tree is sleeping, these branches are still alive. See, just under the bark, it's green. That's your what's called your cambium layer, and that shows that your tree is still alive. That's where your sap moves from the roots to the branches, and from the branches back down to the roots. And then you've got buds, and those buds, of course, are also still alive, and they're going to remain dormant through the winter. But these buds are what is going to help this tree grow again into a tree. Not only are these buds going to be able to grow the branches and the leaves, but they're also going to be able to grow the roots. Now, what I've got here, I've got three types of basket willow here. I've got yellow basket willow, green basket willow, and I've got red basket willow. And of course, willow is a great tree for propagating because it propagates so readily. And in fact, when you have young branches and leaves, you can also use them. You put your young branches and your young leaves into water, and they're going to release a hormone into that water that you can use to water any type of branch cutting that you're trying to root. And in that water, there's going to be a rooting hormone. I'd like to interrupt by saying that it is not necessary to use hormones in the method that I'm going to show you today, which is propagating your branches directly into the soil. Because of the soil life that is there, they are going to be able to sprout their roots, and you don't need the rooting hormone, but rooting hormones can always help. And you can make those with young willow branches and young willow leaves. And I'm going to give you a list of tree species and shrub species that you can propagate readily, directly in the soil like this. I'll also be doing some cuttings of some elderberry. So first thing we're going to do now is we're going to make some cuttings. These ones are some typical examples. They don't need to be this big, but I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. Now, I'm actually standing in my creek, and this is one of the areas which I am going to be remediating with these branches. And so to show you a quick example of what all you need to do before we get into doing a whole bunch of cutting. So for instance, we've got this yellow basket willow here. We've got a bud there, another one there. I'm going to show you the details in a minute, but just to give you an idea of what you're in for in this video, basically you can take a branch like this, and it doesn't even have to be this long, and I'm going to explain that why in a minute. And all you need to do is push it into the ground like that. So you just take it and you just push it into the soil. And then I got the last one here, which I'll just put right about here. Take it, push it into the soil like that. Now what's great about this is, of course, you can plant trees to help with your soil remediation, to help with your erosion prevention. But if you're planting a tree that comes in a pot, or that's bare root, that's got all these roots that you've got to be able to spread out, then you're gonna have to dig big holes, either to stick the roots from it that were in the pot there, the same size of your pot or even bigger, or with the bare root, you're gonna have to make a big hole so you can spread all those roots out. When you're digging holes, where you're digging up roots that are already there and so on, and so you're gonna have an initial greater erosion risk along a creek bed, especially with rain, with water levels going up and down and so on. Whereas you take a stick and you just push it in the ground like you just saw me do, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to pull up any roots. As you can see, there's a lot of vegetation here, but I would like to replace this vegetation with basket willow and also with elderberry. A lot of it's going to stay as well. Got pawpaw that I've planted here, that's going to stay, and probably a lot of these alders will stay as well. But then I've got other stuff here like buckthorn that I've got to get rid of, and so I've got to be able to replace it with other better native vegetation that's better for retaining the soil. And so the basket willow is going to be really good for that, and so is the elderberry. And the elderberry will feed us, and the basket willow will allow us to make things like baskets out of it and so on, and will allow us to propagate it elsewhere. So now let's go do some stem cuttings. And once I've got some nice fresh cuttings of the basket willow that are full of bud, I'll be able to show you the best examples of propagating. These examples I just showed you weren't the best, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what it is that we're going to be looking at in the video. Best size of branch to do it, best time of year. So right in front of me there, this is our rain garden, and it's surrounded on the one side, on the south side of it, it's surrounded by 3 types of basket willow and elderberry. All these elderberry that you see stretching all the way back there, we planted from single little stem cuttings in the fall of 2019 in pots before we moved here. They stayed in those pots through the winter, and then we planted them in the spring of 2020 here. These elderberry right here. And then these basket willows we planted a little later. These are green basket willow, yellow basket willow, and red basket willow. So all those basket willows and elderberries help to prevent erosion into our rain garden. And our rain garden, which isn't always full, it's full right now, supports frogs and toads, which helps us in our garden, which is just behind there, behind the rain garden, and also in our pumpkin patch, which is right here to the right of the rain garden. I'm going to start by taking some cuttings from this yellow basket willow behind me. I'm going to be taking lots of cuttings. I'm not going to be necessarily using them all in this video, but I'm going to take a bunch. And the cuttings, of course, at the beginning are going to be a lot bigger than they need to be, because one cutting that I take is going to be able to make many different trees. With the basket willow, you don't need to be afraid of cutting lots of it, because it's all going to grow back. These huge trees were just basically stem cuttings 3 years ago. So there it is now. Much smaller, but it's going to grow all back next year. Now I've got all these. I'm going to clean all these up. This is what I've cut so far, and I could literally have hundreds of trees that I could get from these. Elderberry. This is red basket willow, green basket willow. Of course, all the other stuff is the yellow basket willow. Now, the elderberry, of course, feeds us. It's really healthy too. This was the first thing that we propagated when we came here. First big harvest we got. Now, I'm going to take a cutting from one of these branches. There we go. Now, it's a really long branch, as you can see. I could get probably at least 4 or 5 trees out of this one cut. How do I do that? Well, you just count your buds. So if you look carefully, there's a bud right there, and then you have to turn your branch to see the other one. There's another one right there. And the next one is right there. And then the next one is right there. So there are 4 buds here. There's a 5th one and there's a 6th one. Now, the minimum that you need, I would say, are 3 buds. But I always like to be a bit more generous and use more. Why 3 buds? It's because you want to bury at least 2 buds underground and your 3rd one will be above ground. What's going to happen? In the winter time, those underground buds are going to start growing roots. They're going to be stimulated by the life in the soil, because below the snow, you know, there's still life in the soil, unless it's frozen solid. But in the winter time, there'll be times it's not frozen solid, and times when it is frozen solid. When it's not frozen solid, there's stuff going on under the soil. There's life happening. There's fungus there. There's bacteria. There are insects. There are worms. All that stuff. The worms are pulling those leaves down into the ground. They're turning your soil for you, and all the rest of it. And the life in this stem is reacting to all of that life as well. Like I said earlier, you see the green that is just around the edge under the bark. This branch is alive. Obviously, if it were brown or gray or whatever, it wouldn't really be. And so these buds that you bury, they're going to actually turn into, rather than leaf or branch buds, they're going to turn into root buds. They're going to sprout roots right from what we call this. This is a nodule or knot. And the roots are going to sprout from there, and then above ground, the leaves and branches are going to sprout from the above ground roots. So, theoretically, if I count 3 buds, 1, 2, 3. This little tiny branch here can give me a whole tree, because I got 3 buds here. Bury 2, keep the 3rd above ground. Oh, in fact, I got 4 buds on here. 4 buds, can you imagine? Look at this branch. So this one branch that I've cut could give me 1 tree, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 11 trees. Now, why haven't I continued? Because I still have all this branch here. Well, this area here is just a little bit thin. The minimum size is about pencil thick. So, you know, basically a school pencil, a regular school pencil, not like, you know, the art ones that can be really, really thick. Regular school size pencil, you know, HB10 or whatever they're called. Anyway, so that when it's thinner than that, your chances are less good of it growing into a tree. Although you can still try. If this is all you have, you can try. And what I would suggest is these little tiny branches that aren't pencil thick. What you could do is you take a cutting from this and you bring it inside, or you leave it outside and you stick it in water. And then you can watch and see if roots sprout. This is often holiday season decoration type branches here. And those branches too, you could probably propagate, except that you need to know what they are. You wouldn't want to put something invasive into your garden. But even those branches, you put them in water, they'll probably sprout roots. And so these will sprout roots, and so that's what you can do with the smaller ones. Now, this is a little too small for my preferences, so I'm going to make my other ones, I'm going to do them at least 6 buds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here we go. Cut it. There we go. This has got at least 6 buds on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This has got 7 buds on it. So I'm going to bury 4 of them and keep 3 above ground. It's always good to have, let's say, 1 more below ground than you have above ground, just to make sure that you get those roots started growing. You see, and so the roots are going to grow through the winter, especially towards the end of the winter as spring comes along. And then in the springtime, or sometime in late spring, early summer, even midsummer, sometimes it can be as late summer, you'll see some leaves starting to grow. Now, why is it good to do it in the wintertime? Why can't you just do this in the spring or fall? Well, first of all, I mean, you saw how much I cut that tree back there. That tree is dormant. You do that to a tree in spring or summer, well, especially not in spring, because then you're going to cut all the growth and you're not going to have any energy left. In the summer, you got the leaves happening. You want it to be dormant. You don't want to cut your branches for propagating while there's leaves on there. You can, but it's not as good for the tree, and it's not as good for getting successful propagation. It's better to wait for your tree to be dormant, so that tree is going to recover very quickly from all that cutting. All those cuts are going to dry up in this cold weather. There are no bugs about here around to get into it and so on, because it's way too cold. And of course, these cuts as well are going to heal. Now, you can let them sit for a couple days outside in the cold to let them heal, or you can put them right away in the ground, because which is what I'm going to do with a bunch of these. I'm going to plant a bunch of these today for the video. The rest I'll plant on another day. I'm just going to leave them in a basket outside, and because they're dormant, so they're all right. They're going to be fine. They are used to this weather. So now I'm going to start cutting. But basically this size. Now how many can I get? I already have 2 from this branch. So 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7. One branch I can get 7 new trees. You just stick that in the ground, and you don't have to make a hole or anything, and it will grow for you. Now, the other thing you want to make sure is you plant it in the correct direction. It'll still grow if you plant it upside down, but might grow a little wonky. So usually the bud will tell you what is the correct direction. You can see the nodule right there and the bud coming up from it, and you can see that the top of the bud is pointy. So the pointy end is up, and the sort of flattish or roundish end is bottom. And so you're going to plant it like that. And so I'm going to finish cutting these, and then we are going to go and plant these along the creek bed. Well, not the creek bed, but the creek bank. I'm going to keep some of them extra long, especially for the creek bank, so I can really plant them deep. Now, some of them that have branches, well, this area doesn't have actual buds on it, but it doesn't really matter. You can put that into the ground too. And where there used to be buds or a branch growing, the roots will sprout out from there as well, and eventually leaves will sprout out from there as well, because inside the cambium layer, it's got the cell matter it needs to either form those roots or to form those branches. So you can use these too. They don't have to have the little buds on them, but you just need to watch for the nodules. Many ones I'm keeping for decoration. So yeah, now I'm going to make them extra long so that I can really put them deep into the creek bed. So these ones have like probably a dozen buds on them. Now, it's not always best to make them too long, because that's a lot of living material that you want, that the branch is going to have to maintain, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Some of them I'm going to make small, and some of them are going to be long. I've got so many of them that it doesn't really matter. Now, when you got lots of little branches, what you want to do is cut them off, because you don't want the new roots of this cutting to have to try and keep all these little branches alive. Cut them off, you just have little stubs left, and then the leaves and branches and roots will grow from the base of those stubs. Pencil thick. Shrubs are the easiest thing to propagate, but you can try it with trees, with virtually any type of tree. I'm going to do it with some Manitoba Maple. It does it readily, really easily. Manitoba Maple is a great tree, which many people mistakenly think is a weed, but really Manitoba Maple, you can get maple syrup from Manitoba Maple, and Manitoba Maple is one of the best trees for soil remediation because it grows quickly. It really, really holds on to the soil. I'm not going to put the Manitoba Maple in the bank of my creek because I don't want all that shade on my creek. I'd rather use shrubbery.
I have used this method of propagating trees very successfully with a great many different species of trees, from full-size canopy trees to fruiting trees to fruiting shrubs to shrubs and brambles. Some of the bigger trees I've propagated in this way are sycamore, sugar maple, Manitoba maple, ash trees. And some of the fruiting trees that I've
make sure I get some small ones in there.
Done are elderberry, nannyberry, highbush cranberry, raspberries, blackberries, any of those brambles, roses as well.
Okay, I think I got enough trees for now. Probably got about 100 cuttings in there. So let's go make some trees.
You can propagate trees anywhere, but right now I need to work on my creek banks, so that's where I'm propagating. Last fall I did another video on the same subject where I propagated elsewhere. I'll leave the link in the description. Now, because I have lots, I plant them close together because they won't all necessarily survive. That's the thing about nature's abundance. Nature puts out abundantly because not everything always survives. And so, we imitate that here. There we go. Module right there. Same on the other side. Here's another one. Those ones don't have buds, but it's because these had branches. I'll make sure to cover it right up, and there we go. Make sure there's at least one above ground. Here we go there. You can see right here as well, and this one over here as well. Let's got one more there. Red basket willow, yellow basket willow, green basket willow. Propagating a tree from branch cuttings. Let's do a quick review. Best time of year, late fall, or any time in the winter. Minimum size for your branches is roughly school type pencil thick. And the minimum number of the buds that you want to have on your branch are 3. 1, 2, 3. But you can have more buds than that. You can have many more if you want, although don't make your cuttings too big because the roots are going to have to keep too much of the plant alive while it's waiting for the leaves to grow. You want to bury at least 2 of your buds. So I'll show you how we do this. Push it into the ground. Like that. Now you got a new tree. Let's try it again. 1, 2 buds. Just push it into the ground. Now you can have a new tree. 1, 2 buds. And of course your other ones are above ground. And just push it into the ground. There we go. Make sure you've got at least 1 bud above ground. At least 1 bud above ground. At least 1 bud above ground. The leaves and branches will grow from the buds that are above ground, even if there's just 1, and the roots will grow from the buds that are below ground. Even when we got high water, this being basket willow and elderberry, they won't mind being underwater if the water comes right up to here, which it does sometimes when you got the spring melt and that kind of stuff. Here's a basket willow I planted last fall. This is the cutting. This is one of the branches that grew. It's under the leaf cover here and everything is really frozen. It's 10 degrees below freezing this morning. So I'm not gonna uncover it. But as you can see, it's over 1.20 meters tall, over 4 feet tall from last fall. In last year's video, you saw me taking cuttings from a sycamore tree, Platanus occidentalis. This was one of them. You can't see where this branch is coming out, but this branch is coming out from this sycamore cutting. And here it is. So this is its first year's growth. Really happy about this. It's about 3.5 feet tall, just over 1 meter tall. And this one's gonna be probably 6 feet tall next year, which is really nice, or close to it. I love the sycamore. What I would like it to do eventually is be a companion to that white pine, which is about 20 meters away. A basket willow cutting that I put in a year ago, and here it is. Here was this year's growth. It's about 3.5 feet tall, just over 1 meter tall. Next year, this basket willow is gonna be full size. It's gonna be bigger than me. Here's another one. Here's the original cutting.
And here is the branch. There's some more over here. Here's the original cutting. Here's the branch. Another one. Here's the original cutting. Here's the branch. And another one. Here's the original cutting. And here's the branch. And you can see there's a lot of vegetation surrounding these guys. They grew anyway, even though they were covered in other vegetation. They're gonna end up being bigger than all this vegetation. It'll be beautiful. Here's another cutting that I put in midwinter last year, not quite a year ago. And this as well is about 4.5 feet tall, about 1.40 meters. So this is going to be a full-size elderberry next year. Here's another cutting. It started off, it was about 1.5 feet tall, about 45 centimeters tall. And here are its branches that grew this past season. Here's one, and here's another one. These ones are almost 5 feet tall, 1.50 meters. Another one right beside it. This one, the original cutting. You can't see because it's under all the snow. There's another one over there. There's the cut. And then the branches that grew. This is all elderberry. He's actually fruited this past summer. Here's a Manitoba maple cutting. This was the original cutting, which was about 1 meter or 3 feet tall. This was, I think, 2 years ago. And this is now over 6 feet tall, over 2 meters tall. And I actually took many other cuttings from it. I didn't want it to be too tall because it's right beside this tamarack here, which I want to take over this area. But while waiting for this tamarack to grow, I wanted to do some soil remediation and have more cuttings. And so I put this Manitoba maple cutting here to get more cuttings from it and to retain the soil while the tamarack was getting established. Here's a line of Manitoba maples, including this one, cuttings that I just put in a few weeks ago. Hope you liked the video. Hope you found it useful. Hope you learned something from it. If you learned something from it, then please share it with your friends. And if you haven't done so yet, then subscribe to our channel. Support what we're doing here just by subscribing. And if you want to hit that notification button, do the same. Oh, and also if you liked it, don't forget to hit that like button as well. So have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time.